Hello, all. Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, based on wherever you are. And thank you for continuing support to this series. And today's video comes from a first comment or a comment on social media about the series. As in, is there a way that we can log API transaction that we are doing in Business Center? So, as in the previous videos, we have seen how you do a get, how you do a put, patch, post, and delete commands. In this video, we'll try to understand that for logging purposes, can we kind of record these API transactions that are happening so that the administrator can kind of monitor what's happening with the API transactions that are being executed from Business Center. So before we start, again an humble request, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, do subscribe to the channel. It helps us to understand how we are doing. It kind of gives us a little bit of motivation to keep doing what you are doing. So do subscribe if you haven't. So let's get back to it. I would highly encourage, if you are watching this video for the first time, I would highly encourage to go back and watch the part 1 and part 2 of the series, where we have discussed how this was built and how all these actions were executed. So in this particular video, what we wanted to do is anytime we do a get or a post, patch, or any of these API commands, it gets recorded like any other log, and then we'll be able to utilize it. So let's get started. Okay, it's a project, and so let's understand where we are doing it. Okay, so in this, whenever any of these requests are made, we have made this generic function called make request, which processes the request. It first builds the request with the content, with the payload if there is any, defines the HTTP method, and then sends the request and then gets the response out of it. Now at this point on line number 88, we have the request and we also have the response. We have the HTTP method and we also have the calling URL that we are using. So we can actually try to store this data into a table at this point somewhere. So let's do this. Let's try to create a function here and let's call it as store or log API. Okay. Log API transaction. Okay. So we would like to log the API transaction. Okay. What all we would like to log? Let's think about it. We surely would like to log what URL user tries to access. So let's do the URL to access. Then we would like to log what kind of request he or she made, which is based on the HTTP method. Okay. Then we would like to get the status, because that's important. Is it successful? Is it a failure when somebody made the request? Then we would like actual request and actual response to be stored. Okay, now let's create this method. Okay, create procedure. So we have this procedure where we have all the parameters that we would like to log. Eventually, when we would like to log it, we surely would like to create a table about it. So let's first go ahead and create a table with the fields that we need. Okay, so here in this table section, I'll just add a new table and we will call it as SDH API log entries, like any other log entry table, right? Customer content, let's try defining the fields into it. First one will be entry number, so that it kind of saves it itself. Then we are surely storing the URL that is being called. Then we want method to be called. We're passing the method, right? METHOD. Okay, method. Then we would like to get the request and the response that was received if needed. That's the reason. Then we want the response code. Will we get the code? We should be getting the code some way or other. So my response should have the code, because is it a success or a failure, we'll get that value from it. Then once we have done the response code, was this request successful, is also important. Okay, and then who executed it, as in there's a default field for it, but I would like to kind of use the field that I'm creating, and then when it was logged on. You could use system audit fields for these too. The requested by is stored there, and then the logged on, which is the date and time when it was created, system created by, you can use those if needed. And a number would be an integer, URL would be a text, and let's set it pretty wide. The method that we are using should be of enum http method. Okay. Request. Now, because request is in JSON, so we can't store it in a text or a JSON text data type. So let's store it into a blob. Okay. Response also in a blob. Response code is an integer which is written 200, 400 and all. Successful is a boolean. Requested by is code 50, the person who executed it, and logged on is, let's say, date. Let's finish this. So we have the table available called API log entries. Let's do some minor changes into it. We'll set this to auto increment so that I don't have to worry about this number. Okay. URL, let's make it as extended data type as URL to keep it simple. Then everything else looks okay. Now, because we are going to add record into this table, why not we create the function which stores the record into the table itself and then call it from this method as we need it, right? So let's create a function here. We'll call it procedure, and the procedure would be add new log entry, and we'll be getting the same things, which is, and I should be able to copy and paste it from here. Okay, so I'll be getting the access URL access that I want to use, HTTP method that is coming in. Then I would like these not to be like the request and the response. We would like successful or response status as to be boolean, which internally means successful, and then who requested it. But in case of request and response, I would like to set these differently. To write into a blob, what I'll need is an in stream or an out stream, in stream, so that I can then write it into the blob, right? So let's change the parameters here, and let's call it as request stream, in stream, and then also response stream, in stream. So from these I'll be able to kind of write it back into the system. I would also like to get the response code, which is important for me. Response code of type integer, so this will store the integer, and then let's change it to keep it simple. Success boolean, and then who requested it is, it doesn't matter much. I guess I can set that up here. Now once that is done, I just will create a variable of this table, as simple as that. So I'll not get into details of it, but what I'm doing here is I'm doing a log entry of type record, and then in this I'm just going to do log entry dot init and log entry dot insert true. Okay, log entry dot url, log entry dot method, and then I have the response code, log entry dot response code coming from response code, successful is coming from here, requested by is coming from the user ID, and logged on is coming from the date, which is today. If you would like to keep it as date and time, it's your call, it's all okay. And this will insert the record. The only thing that is remaining is the actual stream of request and response, which will holding the data. But let's come back here and try managing those request parameters so that we can convert them into streams. So if you have worked on a stream, great. If you haven't, let's figure that out here. So we have all these variables, and then what I can do here is I can do a request dot content, and then I can actually do a read as. And if you remember our previous discussions, read as had three options: output secret text, which gives you a secret text, output string, which writes it into the string, and third is in stream, which writes it into a stream. So I can actually define an in stream here. So let's say request in stream, and in the same way response in stream of type in stream. So what I can do is I can read the request and store it into the stream. So this will then get into the stream, and in the same way I can do for response and into the stream. So these two lines will fill in these in stream variables as they are needed, and then using this table variable, let me copy this as it is. Okay, I can just call to log entry dot add new log entry, and I can pass URL to access. I can pass the HTTP method. I can pass the in stream of request, in stream of response, and then the next one that I need is URL to access, in stream response code. Now my response code is stored in my response HTTP response. What I can do here is I can do a response dot HTTP status code. This will give me the status code of the response that has been received, and then my response status, and last but not least, hopefully this is over, let's see, response code and response status, which is success. I don't need it to be var, so I'll just correct it here on the calling one. I don't need it to be passed as reference. Okay, now this is good. This looks pretty good at this moment. Now what we have to do is we have to handle the streams that came through, right? To handle the stream that came through, I'll just create a new function to handle streams. It's good to kind of not bake in everything here. So I'll need the log entry that's been created. I'll need the request and the response stream, which has been coming from here. The whole idea of the handle stream function is to process these streams and then put them into the log entry record that is there. So how we do that? Let's figure that out. First, we need to identify the field that we are trying to load the stream to, and then we'll create a out stream for that blob field. Now these words might be confusing, but outstream kind of opens up the port to the outside word so that you can write text into it or write text into it, right? And then you can pass the you need to pass the outstream type. Okay, so let's create one and we'll call it as outstream, just to keep it short, outstream. Now this opens up this field to be filled in, but what it will fill in is, we can, when you have to copy certain things between streams, you can use the copy stream, which copies anything that is contained in the in stream to an outstream. So anything that is coming from the calling function, which is in stream, by calling this method can be passed to the outstream. So I can here say outstream gets filled in with whatever the request stream that is being sent, and then I can just do log entry dot modify. This will write it. The same step I have to do for the other one, so I'll just copy paste this, and this time it'll be response. Okay, this will be response stream, and this will create it. Now because outstream is used twice here, I'll just do a clear of it in case if there is anything onto it, I'll get cleared out, and same I'll do here. Okay, so this the log entry will get updated, and I'll need to pass this as reference so that this is going to be modified, and the streams will get loaded into it. Now we have the data into the table. We surely need a page to see this data. So let's create a new page, and the page we will call it as SDH API log entries, and this will be from SDH API log entries. Okay, this will be of type list, and it will be into the history section. I'll need the entry number, and let's put the field based on your uses or how you want it. I'm putting entry number and this, and then method, and then request, which you can't see, it's a blob, but let's put it there, and response. Once we have the response, we'll put the response code, what happened, and then we will use the response code, which we have done. Now we will pick the status of it, and then just for the logging purposes, who requested it and when it was requested. This creates a page. I'll just change the caption of it, and I'll also copy this and set it on the table as my lookup page ID and my drill down page ID. So these two are related, and I don't have any comment explaining this, so I'll just remove this. Okay, so my page is ready, and I should also attach this page somewhere on the page that I built to handle it, which is this. So I should have an action somewhere here on the top of it. So let's create an action. Okay, let's define the area, which is okay, navigation. Okay, inside this let's create an action, the action, and the action is log entries. This will show you the image of log entries. Okay, error log, change log, error log, let's say. It's actually not an error log, but just for the image. And then the run object is equals to page this. Okay, Now because we want it to be promoted, if you don't know it, in the latest versions of Business Central you should be doing it using the area promoted. Okay, promoted, and inside that you're going to add an action reference, and we will define the action reference for log entries, and the name of the reference is ref. Okay, this will add the promoted properties that are needed to promote an action automatically, and I don't have to worry about it. So this adds it here. Okay, so you have the table, we have the code which adds the data into it, but the last but not the least thing is to download those actions. So I already have in another app where I have used a similar kind of thing, so I'll just copy paste the actions. I'm going to create two actions into this. The one is to download the request, which downloads the request part of it, and the other is download response, which will download the response that is stored in that particular log entry that we are trying to access, which then eventually needs two functions. One is download request and the other is download response. So let's come here on the source table and let's add a procedure, download request, and in the same way we'll try to get the other one, which is download response, because when we have saved it, if somebody would like to analyze it, they can only do when they can download it, because it's a blob, you can't read it directly there. And even if you can on a fact box and all, it's not that intuitive because it's coming from, it's not that good visible. Okay, so now we're trying to download the request. Let's focus on this because that will remain same for the response. So if the record that is selected have the request and it has value, if it is not empty, then let's do this. Okay, if not has value, is empty? I don't know, I'll have to check. Let's see that. Okay, no, it says has value. Okay. If it does not have value, then I don't want to proceed further on it. But if it has value, then we would like to calculate the flow field using set autocalc field, and the field that we are trying to do is request. If you don't know this, you want to use calc fields, go ahead, that's not a problem. It might have problem in the performance, but there's no problem from using it at this moment. So we're going to get the request by getting it into a stream, and we'll call it as in a stream, because anything that you're downloading, how you download a file from Business Central, let's first figure that out. So to download a file, you have to do a download from stream. Download from stream needs certain parameters. The first one being the in stream. So your file that you're trying to download should be an in stream, and then it'll get downloaded. So what we are going to do here is we are going to call and define a variable of type in stream. This will create the in stream port for it, and the file will be available. So I then will be able to use the in stream to download the file. That becomes my first parameter. The second one is download dialog title, which is not visible, but just because it's there, let's do here export request. Okay, what else is there? To folder, and not pointing to a folder, we can't point to a folder. To filter, now what kind of files will be allowed into this? Now this is a very interesting way, and I kind of don't remember it. So what I normally do is I'll go into my code unit 419, which is not used any more in Business Central SaaS, but there's a filter section that I remember, which always helps me. Okay, I always get confused about this, so let me see. I guess I have an Excel filter, Excel file type. Okay, this is get filter text, and here I'll get these files. So this is the filter syntax. All right, now we'll be downloading a JSON file format, so we'll be utilizing this in here as it is, and we'll call it as JSON files, and we'll call it as dot JSON and start dot JSON. This is how you kind of provide the filter. The next and the last is what would be the result file name that you want to create. So we'll create a variable here called file name of type text, and let's fill in the file name before we start going further into it. Okay, so file name, how you make the file name, let's do rec.entry number, and let's do a rec. Method, and then let's do a rec.requested by, anything else, and then let's do, oh, because these all are non-text field, I'll have to format these values, so I'll just put format here. I'll also put format here. Okay, and I'll also put the format, oh, I don't have to put that. Okay, and then I'll make a separator which is underscore, just to keep it simple so that it doesn't look bad on the output side. So I have this, and then I have request.json. So I'm downloading a request file. This will download the file for me. I can copy paste this into my response section and just tweak some parameters here. It'll be, instead of request, it'll be response, and then I'll calculate the response, and then I'll get it into the stream, and here I'll do a underscore response.json. Hopefully I've converted everything. Yes. Now these two actions are already added into the page, so I'll be able to access the file that I have been stored there. So what we did, let's quickly review here based on the last commit that we have on our source control. We did create a new table to store this, which have certain function to download the request, to download the response, and add a new record. We also created a new action or relation to the log entry page on my API handler page. We created a new page which will be used to see all these log entries or download that data, and then we added one command here to log the API transaction, which then logs it back into the table. Just thought of one more thing. On the new page, when it was created, it should have editable as false. People should not be able to modify this. You cannot insert from this page, and you cannot delete from this page, directly from the page. Okay, is there a modifier allowed? Yeah, that should also be false. Okay, so now we have created this. Now let's try to publish this and test this out. Okay, let's publish this. Control F5, that should get published into my environment in a minute, and then we'll be able to check is it even logging, and I'll be able to download the files or not, because that's the whole idea of this particular video, is to see what capabilities we have. So we see the log entry page here, we can click on it, there's nothing at this moment. We see the actions that we have added, all look good. Let's do a get. I should put a message. Let me know into the comments what you think. I'll do if needed. Let's go to the log entries, and we see a request. of get, and this has been created successfully and all. Okay, let's try to do a post. That also creates a new record here. Let's again try to do a get. We have 3 requests now. Now let's see what the response came when we did a post. Okay, so when I did a post, I actually got this response. It might not look beautiful, but that's okay because this is not a JSON editor. But if I can search for a JSON beautifier, which is technically which organizes the JSON in the way that it should be. Okay, let's do beautify. So this is the response from the post, which is this is the ID and this is the request created, which looks nice, which is good. Can we see the response from get? Yes, we can. Let's open this and let's see what happens on when we made a get request. Okay, beautify, and I got whatever the response that comes from the get request. Can I download the request? I'm not sure, but let's give it a test. Okay, it doesn't seem to be doing anything. No. Okay, request is not being saved, which is a little bit surprising, but I'll have to check and see the possibility, because at least on the post case we had some payload that's being passed, so it should have the value, but if it is not, I'll figure that out. But the idea with this is that any transaction that you're doing via the API system that we have built in, with this feature you will be able to log those transactions for administrative use or for your users going forward to see how many transactions have been done. Are there transactions failing? Is there a pattern that you can find, based on the status and all? So it'll help you in the long run when you're dealing with APIs in Business Central. So that was all for today. And yeah, before I let you go, remember the video, the code, the source code of whatever we have done today will be available in the GitHub repo. The GitHub repo link will be available in the description and or in the first pinned comment to this video. You know the drill. If you think this was useful and you like the content, hit the like button. If you think it'll help one of your friend or colleague, then do share this video with them. At least I would request you to share this video with at least one person. And if you haven't, then do subscribe to the channel. Just FYI, if you are interested more about Business Central, we have a quiz running on Instagram. There's a daily question that gets posted every day, and it just helps us to keep our brain working with Business Central. So if you're interested in Instagram quiz, head up to my Instagram and try to answer those questions. Let's have fun with Business Central. I'll see you sooner than later on the next video. Till then, have fun, keep learning, keep sharing, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.